Hello and welcome to my ongoing tutorial about Back in Time and Skyward Sword. And today we're gonna go a little bit more in depth for Back in Time. It's gonna be BiTmagic, which is quite complicated, but we'll figure it out. So first of all, BiTmagic is basically the reverse of reverse BiTmagic, which kind of makes sense considering the name. So basically, in my last video, I explained that for reverse BiTmagic, in order to get like the change applied, at least for sceneflags, you need to make a commit, right? So for sceneflags, for RBM, you needed to commit the flag after you did the RBM. So for story flags and inventory flags, that actually wasn't the case. There was like different things. So for story flags, they didn't need any update at all, and for inventory flags, you needed to reload somehow. Or load anything, basically. So in Back in Time, it's a little bit different, and with those two other flags. And the reason for that is that um, if I select a file like this, in the story flags of what my file is, these things get loaded. So this is what my file has as story flags, right? But this is not used for Back in Time. This is only used for the actual gameplay with file 1. And as you can see, if I change to file 2, it will get different flags depending on whatever I select, right? So what is used for Back in Time is an extra area in memory that saves all these. And they get saved whenever I do any flag that has the same type of, or is the same type of flag. So the same with like scene flags, where we could also do temporary scene flags and Loadingzone scene flags. Those other types are basically they're work a little bit different, have different things they work for, but they're in the same type, I should say, and that leads to a commit. So for story flags, there's not much difference. So you can only get story flags to update story flags. There's not much diversity there. So for example, a story flag you could get is saving at a statue, because every time you save at a statue, the game actually sets a story flag. As you can see, if I'm going here and I'm going to save this. So this is still here, how this looks. And now I'm going over to the title screen story flags. And you can see, oh, they're the same. I should have probably changed it earlier, but I'm just going to show it with saving a different file now. So I'm going to save this file, and you can see it'll change right there. You can see now there's a new. So for story flags, it's basically they'll set they will always set. So it doesn't matter if you have the story flag already on your file. As long as you can get the story flag, like if you activate an event that should give you the story flag, you will update your story flags, because the game will always set, or will always do the action of setting a story flag, even though you already have it set. So, for example, the statue here set this value right here to like 10, A10 right here, which is technically on my files already, or at least on some. But it still does commit all my story flags. So yeah, that's for story flags, the basic idea. So inventory flags basically work the same. So we have the standard inventory space right here, where all the inventory stuff is, and down further down is like counters and stuff. And these as well change whenever you select different stuff. So yeah, the treasure counter doesn't change because all these files have the same treasure, but yeah. So basically, like, I think this is like treasure, and then it starts with like seed count, bomb count, and arrow count, and so on and so on. And rupees, of course. And up here, this is all the actual items. So, in order to update your item flags, it's basically the same. So I can show you title screen inventory flags right now are completely empty, obviously. So what I can do is I can do a update of item inventory flags. So again, it needs to be the type. So here there's like either you can get an item, an actual item, so one of these upper things, and then you can also update one of your counters. So for example, by collecting a rupee, you get more rupees, so the counter updates and so the inventory space updates. Or using a seed lowers your seed count, so it updates the inventory flags. What I'm gonna use is this stamina fruit. So the first time, like basically for every item, the first time to collect it, there's like a text box, and the game saves if you have watched the text box or not, and that is done via the inventory space. So I can just run into this with file 1, and as you can see, it all updated, and now I got all the flags onto my file. So a few things, I'm gonna take this out. So a few things, you can see my sword didn't directly update. Yeah, the few things don't directly update with all these things. So a lot of things just need reloads. It's like with Sceneflags by RBM, where some things just didn't directly applied, and you need to reload. Same thing happens a lot with inventory stuff and Storyflag stuff. So as you can see, I loaded my my items, but I can actually not equip my slingshot and my beetle. So they're actually loaded, and I could actually equip them, but in order to equip any item, you need the B wheel. And the B wheel is actually a story flag. So what I can do in order to activate my story flags is I can just save here. And now I'll get the B wheel, as you can see up there now. And if I press B, I now can get this. And then I can use the slingshot, for example, to load my inventory of another file if I want to. So yeah. But as you can see, I technically saved the flag, because the hero's tunic is also a story flag, for example. I technically now have the hero's tunic, but it doesn't show because it also needs like a reload, as an example. And the next example is like, what I can do now is, as I said, it needs a reload, so I can, for example, kill myself. I'm just gonna use the fast way and kill myself with memory. So I can kill myself. It's important, if you want to retry this as well, that you save somewhere before doing this or enter a loading zone, because otherwise you'll have the problem that you'll get the black screen because the game doesn't have any respawn coordinates for you. So yeah, I'm back here, and as you can see, there has been made changes to this map. So there's the Elden Pillar we didn't see before, and there's the Ferrum Pillar we didn't see before. And as you can see, I also have my hero's tunic now. So all these, and also my sword, by the way. So all these things update. Basically, you have to reload. And yeah, it's not really useful for the most part, because there's not many needed changes that Storyflags do. But just as an example, how you can get these things to actually appear. So yeah. So one more thing with the inventory, which is a little bit weird and hasn't really been explored much, but so basically, selecting a statue does check if your sword can charge or not. So you can see, even though I have the goddess sword right here, I try to charge, but it doesn't work because I selected file, I opened file 2, and opening file 2, the game checks if your sword can charge or not for whatever reason. So can charge, and now can charge. There you go. So that's a weird thing about a sword, and a weird thing about a sword. Okay, I'm annoyed that I loaded tunic now because now I can qualify. Whatever. So the weird thing about a sword as well is that it has some sort of these things. So we know that inventories update after load, but for some reason, in Back in Time, if you enter a loading zone, you'll actually get the sword from the last place that you should have. So if I'll just restart back in time right here is probably the most obvious, so I'm just gonna quickly redo it. So basically, you enter an area, and the game checks what you had on your last area as an item, as your sword item at least, and it then gives you that item. So if you just enter a loading zone without ever committing any item flags, you'll end up in that area with no sword at all. And then if you leave again the area, then you'll get the other flag. It's just something weird. Probably because of this extra check that the game does for this charged stuff, but I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the door down here. I'm just gonna do it with file 1. And this normally has got a sword and it actually also gets applied, so I'll just quickly show it to you. If you look into the inventory space, so obviously, I said it earlier in the video, entering a loading zone actually commits your inventory flags and your in your story flag. So this should be empty right here because this is the correct space. So this should be empty here normally because it didn't commit anything to my items. But since entering a loading zone commits it, I have all this stuff. And this up here is my god sword actually. But will not have it because of this weird desync with swords. Same goes with story flags, but story flags don't have any weird things to them when it comes to loading zones. So I don't need to show it. So you can see I definitely have the sword right here. I'm just gonna like put it over here. Yeah, okay, that wasn't sword. But as you can see, I don't have any sword right now. But the moment I select a file, I'll get myself a sword, right? And if I need to sleep tonight now, so let's sleep with this file to make it more clear. So this file has the practice sword, right? So I'm gonna sleep now. You can see on the right side, flags updated. But you can see I now have the goddess sword. Yeah, so this is just a weird desync. Okay, that was interesting load right there. That's just a weird desync. So yeah. And I think that's it for inventory and story flags. So we'll have to go on to our scene flag stuff. So yeah, scene flags are quite complicated, and the reason is, again, I said that before, that the game actually the back in time actually has like separate memory spaces for everything. So you saw like separate story flags and separate inventory flag spaces. But there are only one extra space because there's only one place where you need to save scene flags at. So story flags and inventory flags at. For scene flags, it's a little bit more complicated because every location in the game, like every save location, basically has their own scene flag space. So the Skyloft has one, the Sky has one, and the Farron has one. So they each have their own space and memory. So when you enter this area, the game checks at that place and sees, okay, these flags have already been set in this place, these scene flags, and will apply them to the area when you enter, right? So these are every save location has their own space and memory for back in time. So this Skyloft area right here has its own save location. That is not the same as the save location on our files. So that basically means that committing story flags is way more complicated. So for story flags and inventory flags, for example, when you change something, like let's say you save it a statue, you get that statue flag, right? But the moment you enter in a different loading zone, all of that will get changed again, because entering a loading zone updates your stuff again, right? Yeah, for a scene flag it's a little bit different, because when I commit a scene flag, so I mean, you probably remember this file is actually not saved on Skyloft, this is saved on Elden, and in my bird statue video I explained that bit saving does not actually save your save location. I at least think I did. So this is still saved in Elden, although I bit saved it, just as an example. And I'll just update the flags, and what will happen is, if I can get the rupee down, is that in the title screen scene flags, I'm just gonna open it. It's gonna have, yeah, this is pretty empty, but this is actually the Elden region right here, as the so each of these lines are their own save location, and this is Elden. So if we commit this file, for example, which is okay, so like this, there we go, and you can see, okay, now this is updated. So now we have two things updated at the same time. So we all these scene flags, and we have these scene flags. And whenever I select this file, it will point towards this section, so the game will read those flags. And if I select file 1, it will read these flags. Okay? So that's important, because well, some things, the moment you change it, they'll just change and just stay. The main reason is probably because in-game these flags were only used to be set once, so the game doesn't need to check again if you still have them. So a good example is like a log in Faron Woods. If you have seen like speedruns of this game, you can see like that we often like BiTmagic log down by committing scene flags. And those logs, they just come down and they don't get up again. So because the game knows that these flags will only be set once, the game is like, okay, you set it, so it's down, and doesn't check. At least like if you do something in the area. Of course, if you like go like in another area and then enter again, the game will then again look, okay, what seems like so we've actually could actually set, but in the area itself it doesn't change. So the game's like, okay, you have to lock down, so you can do whatever you want. As long as you stay in this area, the lock will stay down, basically. And then there are different other flags that actually check if you still have them while playing. Maybe because they were intended to work like that. Obviously, I cannot give you an exact reason because I didn't develop this game, but to give you the idea, basically, a good example for that is the gates. So the gates over there, they actually only open if you point towards a file that has 20 here. So this is 3x20, so even though it says B, but it's just because we start with 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 3x20. So this file doesn't point towards this file points here. And just as a note, this file, since it's in Skyview, it points at, like, I don't know which one Skyview is, but let's say this one is Skyview, so it points towards a completely zeroed out space. So each file still points from the start. You don't need to update it, but it will only point towards zeros, so it doesn't really help. So if I select this file, the gates over here, they won't open, right? But if I select file 2, you can see the gates open. And if I just keep this pointer true, so I can also go like this, you can see it. But the moment I open again, I'll load information of file 3, and you can see it's closed again. So just as an idea for these flags. And there's also a very rare case where the game actually doesn't look at the flags here presented, but it actually looks at the flags in our current. So this over here is our current scene flag space. So this is the where the game has all the current scene flags, and there's a very rare case where flags actually check for these current ones. A good example is the LMF Rising, for example. You don't need to commit it because the game will always check for your current scene flags. It has nothing to do with having like it in a safe location, which is very rare cases, but it does happen. So these are like different types of scene flags. And now I want to go a little bit on what that actually means and show even more weird things. So I'm back at the scene flag spaces for back in time. So basically, what it means is that even though like because these are like actually things that don't change when you enter loading zone, so everything that's set here won't change when you enter loading zone, right? So what that means is that these things will stay until I overwrite them manually. So I could overwrite them if I had an Elden flag that has like more flags. So I can make a good example with, I was just gonna delete this file, right? So delete this file, and I'm gonna make a corrupt file. You probably already know. By the way, actually that was not so smart because I just, yeah, I thought so. So what I did right there is I checked the statue with file 3, right? Even though it wasn't a deleting process, I selected it with file 3. And as you can see, you saw something update, and that's why I realized something got wrong, because this is actually my Skyview flags right here. And they are still committed, and that means any change that they apply that doesn't need like pointing towards will apply. So this cutscene right here is probably famous for some people that ran this game and got annoyed by that. So this is the seedling text, and that's actually not a scene flag, it is a temporary flag that activates this, right? So temporary flags work basically like story flags and inventory flags. Since temporary flags are meant to unset on the next area, they just have one space. So they don't need one space for each safe location because they will unset every time you enter a new safe location. So the game only needs one space for it total. So they don't need any pointing towards like story flags as well. So they just applied and then they play out their effect. And temporary flags typically don't need any reloads because temp flags are meant to be directly applied and actually have an impact directly. So yeah, I'm just gonna get this seedling text here. And the problem is, since I didn't commit my inventory flag, so what I can do, if I'm lucky, I can try getting... Well, actually I don't have the digging mitts, never mind. Okay, so I could technically try to get, like, try to get a rupee right here, and then try to get the rupee. And then I actually, because I'm technically soft block, because you can see the fight text is always pulling me back, and then I can technically take this thing out right here. But the problem is I don't have digging mitts on file 1 because I never got it. This is a little bit too early to have this. Otherwise I could now dig. Well, luckily I just made a corrupt file, right? So that was an example for like kind of how BiTmagic works in practice. So now the next, so back to Sceneflags now. So again, what I said is basically means, so right now, again, everything will be set back to 0 because we set it. So if I go now back to my tile screens stuff, because we resetted everything. Everything is 0 now again. But if I check a statue, which sets a scene flag for checking the statue, I can update these. So let me just show it on screen so you can see when it happens. There. And I get these flags, right? So now file 2 points to this space in memory. So if I select file 3, you can see it's also this actually has the safe location of Skyloft, right? So what do you think where this points to? Well, it points to the same location right here, because it is saved in the same safe location. So even though if I go to my current scene flags are completely empty, right? Because corrupt file doesn't have any scene flags. But it points towards this right here, which has a bunch of scene flags in it. So what I can do is, even though my current scene flags don't support this, selecting file 3 will still open the gates. You can see the gates are open over there. File 2 as well, file 3, file 1, they're closed. So you can see like different files can point towards the same safe location if they are in the same safe location. And it doesn't matter what flags they have, they will always point towards what is written here. And this will stay again until I change it manually. And manual changing would be, for example, bonking with file 3. So doing this, or if I get the repeat again, hello, thank you, right there. So you can see everything set to 0 again because I committed scene flags of file 3. So what happens now if I select file 2? Well, the doors stay closed because right here the flag for it is not set. The same goes if I select file 3, it will always be closed. So now it will always be closed. And in order to get it open again, I need to commit these scene flags again, and then it will be open for file 3 and file 2 again. So yeah. That as an idea. Another thing I want to mention is, I briefly touched on it, so whatever you set as a flag actually will also get applied. So if I check the statue with file 1, you can see earlier you only saw this value, right? Because Ellen Ashley only has this value on it. But the reason this file is also here, this flag is also here, is because we checked the statue which sets this exact flag right here. So whenever I select file 1 now, I actually will point towards this and this flag, and it will not change. So what I can do is, I can like enter Loadingzone and select this file again, and it will still point towards this, right? And still this extra flag. But if I, for example, bonk a tree, which is like a temporary flag, so it won't show up here, but there's actually a change made in a different area in memory, but which is not that important, but just so you know, it's a temporary flag. So I'm just gonna update this, and as you can see, right here, I lost a flag. So now it only points to this again, right? In order to point towards both again, I need to check here again, right? Yeah, so that's an interesting, because this is very different from inventories, flags, and story flags, because now, like if I enter a loading zone, I'll still point towards this. The only problem is that sometimes, because flags often set in the background and you don't even notice, if some random flag just set by like moving through this area, for example, this is a scene flag, then I would directly lose this flag. So if you ever want to carry scene flags that actually not belong to your file, like this one, which isn't on its file, just to prove it, I'm just gonna show it. As you can see, it's not here. It should be here, but it is here, right here. So yeah, if you want to take those flags that don't belong to you, you have to be careful to not update your file 1. So you can, without a problem, like have these flags, like you can like bonk trees with this, check statues with this, whatever you want, because this will not affect this space here. Only file 1 is important here, which is very different from story flags. So if I want to carry story flags, I need to make sure to not update them. So what I'm just gonna try to prove that somehow. Let me think about how I can do this the most optimal. Yeah, okay, this is good. So this file has no story flags at all. So you will see that it will get this flag right here, E8A10, because that's the statue flag. So just if I save it, of course. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna save this. There you go. It sets right here. So now it's important. So any effect this value has in this area now is like occurs, like happens now, or like with reload, with like death reload. Yeah. So for this area, it's saved. You don't have to do anything. You can do whatever you want. Okay. But let's get over to our actual, like, if you go to the title screen story flags, it doesn't matter. This is the title screen story flags. It doesn't matter if you change your file, and this will stay still because it was committed. But in our file story flags, which is this here, this is our file story flag. If we know that selecting a different file will change it. So if I select file 2 or this one, you can see like all the story flag changes. And then if those flags didn't have this, so this is a bad example because file 1 and file 2 actually have those flags set, but we all know that it completely overwrites. So if I select this again, I have everything 0 again. Even though I just set this flag here, right? I have everything 0. And the problem now is, if I enter Loadingzone with file 3, because I thought, it has these statue scene flag that I want, I realized very quickly that I don't have it anymore, and I lost it. So in order to carry story flags, what you need to do is to make sure to never select any file. That includes the file itself, because as you saw, I'm just gonna show it again real quick. If I just select the same file again, I'm gonna lose the flag because it checks what's current story flags we have and will place them here. So what I need to do is I need to be very careful and never. So this only applies if you want to change on the next area. So let's say this flag changes something in a bazaar, right? So we want to take this flag to the bazaar. So we need to make very carefully sure that we don't select any files. So this is fine, right? This is fine. This doesn't matter. This is also fine, right? This is fine. But opening the splash screen again will load file 3, and file 3 has technically 0 everywhere. So yeah, that's just the difference between taking story flags from a place and taking scene flags from a place. And if you want to take like multiple scene flags and or story flags, you have to make sure you can only do that in one area, because well, at least I guess you can technically carry with comes with story flag. Okay, so basically I'm just gonna explain it. If you want to take multiple, you just have to make sure that your file just keeps selected. So let's say what are 2 story scene flags? So let's say let's go to our scene flags so I can show it. Scene flags, where are you? Here. So let's say I want to take this flag I already have, right? This flag right here, and I want to take pushing the box. So what I can do is I can take the flag, and if I go to my current, actually, oh yeah, I didn't up. Never mind. I need to. So one thing about scene flags is that unlike story flags, they don't actually apply if you have them set. So what just happened there, because I need to do something, is because it already points to this flag, when I check the statue, the game doesn't set this flag anymore, right? So it ends up making it not possible to get this flag onto the current Sceneflags where I want it right now. So I'm just gonna... So now again, you saw I lost it again. So what I can do now is I can take 2 story flags, and I'm just gonna make that as an example. So I'm gonna take the this one right here, like normal, and I'm just gonna show my current scene flags. And as you can see, my current scene flags still have the 80. But if I again, like with story flags, the current scene flags work like story flags, where the moment I select any file, even the file itself again, I'll lose the flag. So I need to be very careful here. I can like close this file, but I need to be careful to not accidentally select the other file. I'm just gonna push this box here. And also get this flag. And now, if I'll go back to my title screen's flags, I actually now have all these. I have this one and this one. And now I can again do like normal stuff. I just need to be careful to not do anything with this file or I'll lose both of them. Okay, so this is, I think, enough explanation for that. And I'll go now to a little bit more. So there is... So on Skyloft, there is actually a way to have a file be directly committed without doing any scene change. I don't think we know for 100% we know for sure why it happens. But basically, there is 2 Loadingzone templates you can have that will somehow update your file. Maybe because they unset, maybe because they activate some other Loadingzone template or something like that. But basically, it's like one of these cases where I talked about earlier with Sceneflags, where some Sceneflags don't need committing in order to actually have an effect. For example, the LMF rising, if you remember. So the same stuff obviously goes for other types of flags as well, and Loadingzone flags especially, because they meant to be very short-termed effects. So Loadingzone temp flags are just flags that get reset on every single load you do, right? So they're really short-term, and that often means that they have a direct effect if you set them without even needing them to be committed. And having 2x02 or 2x08, which is the number for it, in the Loadingzone template array, will allow you to auto-commit your file. So if you select a file, it will then directly commit everything on your flag, on your file. And an example for an area where one of those templates sets is Deep Woods. So yeah, that's just an example of auto-commit that was very useful in the past when people didn't really understand it. So these just happen to make an effect, and these just happen to commit it. Basically, is the whole idea here. But it again only works for that file, so it doesn't. If you select another file, it doesn't have. You lose the Loadingzone template, so you don't get the auto commit. Yeah. And yeah, one thing I also want to talk about is what actually happens when you load in a different area for Sceneflags. So I talked about how these right here don't change, right? So what does the game actually do? Like, because it doesn't need to load a different thing if you enter Loadingzone. So what the game does is it actually takes the save location like in normal gameplay. So if you enter the sky in normal gameplay, the game will then take the sky save location, which is maybe this, I don't know, let's say this is this sky safe location. It will then take those and see, oh, okay, these are committed, and it will apply them. So what now gonna happen if I'm gonna go over here? So currently this is completely empty, right? But if you look towards what it's pointing, actually pointing towards an 80 here, because we selected the bazaar statue with L3 earlier. But here it's completely 0, right? So if I now enter the bazaar with like my and then I need to make sure that I don't crash here. Would be bad. So give me a second. So now I shouldn't crash, and hopefully this works the way I want it to work. Yeah, so as you can see, it took the Skyloft Sceneflag area, and that means even though I have no file selected right now, and I should normally have no information at all, except for for like inventory and story flags, because those obviously get updated, and I used file 2 to leave, so that's why I have the tunic. But as you can see, sorry, the flag here is set. So yeah, but the moment obviously I open the splash screen, it will change. So it will just be file 3, and then it will just, yeah. So if you want to have like, so sometimes, let's make a good example. So let's say you want to take a story flag with you, in 2 areas with you, right? So the problem is, the moment you enter the next area, you will stay on a splash screen, as you saw right there. And as you also saw, the moment you open your splash screen, you're gonna lose the story flag you want to carry. But on the other hand, let's make like a fictional idea. There is like a log you need to have down in order to get to the next area. Well, that's a problem because you cannot select a file that has a flag, because if you select a different file, you're going to lose the story flag. So what can you do? Well, what you can do is you can have a file that is in the same safe location as the area you enter. So let's say the area is sealed grounds. So let's say I have a sealed grounds file on file 1. I commit file 1, and now these flags are in the sealed grounds area, right? And now when I enter sealed grounds, even though I didn't ever open the title screen, these files on sealed grounds will be applied to my current scene flags and applied to the map, and the change will be that the log is down, and I can actually enter the other area without ever opening a splash screen, which allows me to carry story flags that I normally should not be able to carry. So yeah, there's a lot of fancy things you can do with it, but I feel like the video is getting quite long. I hope I covered most of it. Again, BiTmagic, you have to make sure to test, you have to figure out how every flag works. There's no certain way to figure out something. Some things make sense, some things don't, but most of the time, flags just check once, and scene flags just check once and don't care. But from time to time, they actually check all the time. So yeah, I hope this explains some things and make sure how to BiTmagic your stuff in. We're also gonna make, like, in the future, I'm gonna make a video where I'm actually gonna show some practical stuff with it. But for now, it's gonna be it. Bye.